The Vietnam War. The Vietnam War, also known as the Second Indochina War, was a major conflict that took place between 1955 and 1975. The war was fought between communist forces in North Vietnam and the government of South Vietnam, which was supported by the United States and other allied nations. The conflict was part of the larger Cold War struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States became involved in the war in the 1950s, after the French colonial government in Indochina was defeated by communist forces led by Ho Chi Minh. The United States saw the spread of communism in Southeast Asia as a threat to its own security interests. And it began to provide military and economic support to South Vietnam. The war quickly became a quagmire for the United States, as it struggled to combat a determined and well-equipped guerrilla force in the jungles of Vietnam. The North Vietnamese Army, known as the People's Army of Vietnam, was supported by the Soviet Union and China, and it was able to launch effective attacks on American and South Vietnamese forces. The war was marked by intense fighting and horrific casualties on both sides. American troops faced not only a determined enemy but also difficult terrain, harsh weather conditions, and the constant threat of ambush and booby traps. The war also saw the widespread use of chemical weapons, including the defoliant Agent Orange, which had devastating long-term effects on both soldiers and civilians. The war also had a profound impact on the political and social landscape of the United States. The conflict was deeply divisive, with many Americans opposed to the war and others supporting it. The anti-war movement gained momentum in the late 1960s and early 1970s, with large-scale protests and demonstrations taking place across the country. The war finally ended in 1975, after North Vietnamese forces captured Saigon, the capital of South Vietnam. The conflict resulted in the deaths of an estimated 1.5 to 3.5 million people, including civilians and military personnel, and it had a lasting impact on the countries involved. The Vietnam War had far-reaching consequences for the United States and the world. It was a defining moment in American history, and it shaped the country's foreign policy and military strategy for years to come. The war also had a profound impact on Vietnam, which suffered from the destruction of its infrastructure and the loss of millions of lives. The legacy of the Vietnam War continues to be felt today. The conflict left deep scars on American society and on the psyches of those who fought in the war. The war also led to a re-evaluation of American foreign policy, and it contributed to a growing sense of skepticism about the use of military force to achieve political objectives. In conclusion, the Vietnam War was a complex and difficult conflict that had a profound impact on the countries involved. The war was fought between communist forces in North Vietnam and the government of South Vietnam, which was supported by the United States and other allied nations. The conflict was marked by intense fighting and horrific casualties on both sides, and it had far-reaching consequences for the United States and the world. The legacy of the Vietnam War continues to be felt today, reminding us of the importance of understanding the costs and consequences of military conflict. If you are a trivia lover, please like and subscribe so you don't miss our latest trivia video collection. Don't forget to share with your friends and relatives so that knowledge can expand.